Alright, Shalom. I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahawashi, Bahashem, Rakakadash, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Salutation to all the brothers and few sisters out there. Onto this like foreigners from the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Shalom in Hebrew, which means peace. Something I just read. This is pretty good, actually. So I was looking for something because I wanted to do a show basically on Revelation's 12th chapter. Just the beginning part. So, stumbled upon this. I'm going to say the right name because there was no J back then. That would not be his name. And that picture is completely off. Period. That does not describe the man that's written in the book. All right. That is what you call, a lie, of course. That's falsifying somebody's image. It says Yahawashi as a security risk, intelligence, and repressing in the Roman Empire. So it says personnel tend to have a view of an event that differs from historians, even other people in government, and certainly from the general public. They are often accused of being real politicers or just plain synetics. Let me see, get that word. Look this word up real quick. Cynical. Okay. Which we know what that means. Believe that people are motivated purely by self-interest, truthful of human sincerity or integrity. So, real cynical, right? Although cruel jokes are made about the lack of morality in the intel game, the world's second oldest profession with far fewer morals than the first, etc. The fact is that these are men and women serving a country. Their goal is to keep their own country safe or in a colonial situation, meaning they're being occupied to keep control of their country's possession. Insurgents are their worst nightmare. They have to provide intelligence to decision makers in timely manner in what may turn out to be a life or death situations. Like historians, they never have much evidence as they would like, but unlike historians, you don't get to ruminate issues for a long time with 2020 hindsight. The story of the Passion Week is one Christians all think they know, but looked at though the eyes of the factional chief of the station in Jerusalem, it takes on very different characteristics. The scene is Jerusalem in the first century of our era. Rome had taken over Judea and turned it into a province under the direction of the procreator in 6 CE. After a furious nationalistic resistance led by Judas of Galilee, Rome put down the revolt, but the Judeans remained an unhappy place. It contained many citadels or citadels groups fighting Roman oppression, including a group of assassins called the Sicaries. So that group, that's where they got their name from, right? Those that don't know, they were cutthroats. They were killers. All right. They were what you'll call thugs of the streets, but they try to act like they cared about the people. Like what's scene? Oh, yeah, Malcolm X, and he was like twice he said in the movie, "Get your hand out my pocket, nigga," and it goes over people's head. But there's a reason why Spike Lee did it like that, because he was, at the time he was changing lives. People was getting out of drugs. People, so it's fucking up the dope dealers, money. All right, so the Zakaris ain't nothing righteous about them. Which is gonna say, because the Zakaris led to a lot of people getting killed as well. It's all about the intentions. Now, if you have that is a righteous intention, because we're known for, our people are known for rebelling against certain rulers. We don't like to be ruled. Period. But this happened for a reason. This is Yahawashi Yahshua's punishment. All right. But it says, let me go on. The Roman practice was to strike back at any Jewish terrorist activity, no matter how minor, with sharply oppressive military violence. In fact, they retaliated even against non-violent protesters. In the political maelstream came a carpenter from Galilee. If you were Pontius Pilate, intelligence chief, you would have started a file on Yahawashi immediately. And here's why. The stories had started arriving from Galilee in the north about street preacher, miracle worker, and a healer named Yahawashi. Like I said, I'm going to read it right. I don't like saying that name. How he drew large crowds, and the Romans did not like crowds because they could get out of hand and lead to civil disruption. And had there been an agent in the crowd at the seminar on the mount, he would have heard messages like, the meek shall inherit the earth, and the first will come last, and the last will come first, which Rome is sounded highly subversive. And he was called to his preaching by John the Baptist, another troublemaker, as later put to death by Herod Antipater, the ruler of Galilee, who knew a little something about security. Yahawashi caused so much trouble in Galilee that Herod had him expelled from the province, and now he was heading for Jerusalem. And there had been GPS systems back then. Had there been GPS system back then, they might be flashing dot on the map moving south. So she's taking the ancient world, way of how things went down, to the modern world, and see how they would look at it. And when you look at that point of view, which I'm going to stop, I'm not going to stop right here all the way, but I want to bring this out because there's plenty of scriptures. Plenty of scriptures. I ain't going to make this too long, one. But I wanted to focus on this. Revelations 12 and 1. So look at this as another point of view. Look at it in the Romans point of view. Here you occupy land like you always do, and they didn't like it. That's why on the movie, what's the damn shit called again? The Book of Clarence. Wasn't the greatest, but good movie because of the simple fact they put the right people in the right place, and the Romans that occupied, they didn't want to be there. They didn't like it there. All right, they didn't like it, so you could see the tension brewing. All right. But let me read this real quick. It says, and there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet. And this woman is talking about Israel. All right. Tell you Jeremiah 6:2 that the Lord likened Jerusalem as a woman. There's plenty of scriptures that show you that the Lord sees Israel as a woman. And it says, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars, which represent the 12 tribes in the nation of Israel. So the sun, the understanding, the moon, the knowledge, this is what we were standing upon. Okay? This is what, when the Lord made the covenant with Israel, and it says in Deuteronomy 4, that this knowledge, this everything, this is what the nations would say, look at Israel and say, this is surely they knew the Lord. All right. So this is talking about the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel, because we have a great understanding. It says, and she being with child cried, travailing with birth. So the nation of Israel have plenty of children. What was so significant about this one? This was the child. This is what that, I guess it's not a letter, but how this woman's looking at the point of view. This is what they have a dossier for. All right, like out of all children, because this happened in our history as well. When Moses was born, all right, and Moses' birth was the precursor or the main thing to what was going to happen when Yahawashi was born. It says, and she being with child cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven. So, let me get this real quick. Let's add it to. No, it's Matthew's 11 and 12. Matter of fact, I'll start at 11. Verily I say unto you, among them that are born of a woman, there have not risen greater than John the Baptist. Notwithstanding, that is the last in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. So what the Lord was basically saying was revolutionary statements. Oh, I just went into that. Something to incite the people. Think of, and then here's another point. What they will say, our people were true religious people. And here it comes Yahawashi bringing something that's completely game-changing once you heard it. This is why the disciples asked the Lord, "Are you at this time shall restore the kingdom to Israel?" Because they already had the mindset that, look, he's that guy. All right. When the Lord asks the disciples who they say I am, or who you think I am, Peter said it. He said, "You are the Son of the living God." And he said, "What? The Spirit has revealed unto you." All right. The Spirit had revealed unto Peter. So all his followers eventually believed that. All right. So things that he's saying is coming out of his mouth. Things that he's doing. The things that he was doing. He was healing Romans. All right. Because the people that was being healed were Israelites. Even the Roman centurion. Cornelius, he's an Israelite. So just imagine the scenery, hearing this story about this particular man and what he's doing. He's only doing for his people. And it says, and from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffered violence, and violence take it by force. And the violence came through who? The Romans. All right. The kingdom of heaven is a people before is a place. So the people were suffering. Going back to this Revelations 12 and 3. It says, and there appeared another wonder in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon, which to the spirit I did a show on that. Now the reason why they called Rome the great dragon, for one, they had a insignia of a dragon. The foot shoulders was considered to be a dragon. The color red, the reason why they wear the color red was whatchamacallit, was a crimson red, something like that. As for blood, like to put fear to the people. So when you see them wearing that red color, scarlet color red, was to put fear. So when the other army that seen them coming, they come in ferocious. They move as one unison. All right. And the insignia for the foot soldiers was a dragon. It says having 7 heads and 10 horns, which represented what? Esau and his kingdom. All right. It's not talking about Satan himself. It's talking about Esau and his kingdom. It says, and 7 crowns upon his heads, and his tail drew the third part, which is Judah, Benjamin, Levi. That's what it was occupying. It was occupying the 12 tribes. It was occupying those in Jerusalem, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it were born, which they goes into Mary, which also goes into what? Israel as a whole. But go back to this real quick. Matthew's, is it 3? No, I'm sorry, Matthew's 2. 2, let me go to the point. All right. It goes into the wise man, because next week so happens to be that period. So then Herod, when he privately called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search diligently for the young child, and when you have found him, bring me word again, that I may worship him also. So if you don't know, Herod was a supplant. He came from a line of Edomites. Herod did not put himself in a position of power. It was the Romans that did. All right. I believe, which one is it? Well, Octavian Caesar was classmate with one of these Herods. I can't remember. Herod the Great. And they positioned him in that land. He was backed by the Romans. All right. So there was even more oppression. It says when they had heard the king, they departed, lo, the star which they saw in the east, and went before them, which is talking about a chariot, till it came and stood over where the young child was born. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly great joy. And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and he fell down, worship him. And when they had opened their treasures, they present unto him gifts. Oh yeah, the wise men were Israelites, by the way. That's another thing too. Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And being warned of the Most High in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. So they scattered, because Three times a year, Deuteronomy 16:16, all the sons of Israel had to come back to the homeland. This is why they knew about the promise. This is what they knew about everything. It says, and when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise and take the young child and his mother and flee into Egypt, because there was Israelite community there, and be thou there until I bring thee word from Herod. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. And when he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, Out of Egypt I have called my son. And Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, he was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem and all the coasts thereof, for 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. So there you go. This is what they was waiting. The dragon's waiting for that child to be born. Okay? So they didn't just wait when the child was born, to get him. No, he was born. They knew he was born. And they wanted to take action right then and there. This is the violence that was being done before the Lord even came into the scene. All right? This was exactly what was being done. So it says, and his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered for to devour her child as soon as it was born. So Herod knew what the Jews were saying. He's like, this Messiah type. Think about it. His father, a usurper, married into Israelite royalty. You think that he didn't know about the Messiah? He passed down to his son, which was Herod the Great at that time. He was appointed in the land. He was appointed the usurper king. He knew for a fact, if this was factual, what would happen? There'll be a revolution. There will be a great overthrow, his downfall. And she brought forth her son, brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with the rod of iron. So this is the promise. This is the future. This is the purpose. This was Yahawashi's purpose. And they all knew that. So just knowing this part alone, they knew for a fact this would be trouble. This is why I'm going to quote it. The Pharisees and the Sadducees said, well, actually, it said it was the chief priest that said one man shall die for all sins. They knew who he was. That's how wicked they were. Wicked. They knew who he was. They knew his purpose, and they still turned on him to set him up against the Romans because the pressure was on. Like this, going over to that. Let me go back to this real quick. Back to this article, which was well put together. This is another point of view. It says Yahawashi was not alone. The men who accompanied Yahawashi had names that suggested revolutionary learnings. Simon the Zealot, Judas Iscariot, Judas Iscariot, or Sicarius, whatever, Simon the freedom fighter, James and John, sons of thunder. Look at the names. And now they were heading towards Jerusalem at the most political, volatile time of the year, Passover, a time when the Romans reinforced their garrisons. The release, the crowd became unruly. The governor himself came to Jerusalem. Soldiers patrolled the roof of the partisans of the temple, so they could be on the lookout for troublemakers known as agitators were watched. So they're giving you a whole different aspect outside, but using terminology of today, showing you that our Lord and Savior Yahawashi was not a Boy Scout. What he was saying was revolutionary. The people was not willing to lie down for anything. They were willing to fight. They were willing to get down. That's why the capital punishment was what? The cross. Yahawashi wasn't the first one to go on the cross. That was a common Roman practice. To punish, that's a capital punishment. Put people on the cross. So, yeah. Did Yahawashi walk into Jerusalem quietly, as most pilgrims did? No. He made a public entrance, reenacting a passage from the Old Testament, Zechariah 9:9, describing the Messiah who would ride in a donkey with people shouting Hosea. Palms, leaves were thrown before him, and he was called the Son of David and King. The problem with this stage scenario was that the Romans did not recognize any king but their own emperor. To call yourself Messiah, Mashiach in the Hebrew, meant you are claiming the title of the rightful anointed king of the Jews. This is why Pontius Pilate, when he came before him, he said, "Aren't you a king?" Try to make mockery of the Lord. So yeah, this is a good thing to stir up. Like, just look at the scene. It was not just a story, it was a scene. This man was saying something. He was doing something. He was doing things. He was saying things. And he didn't even go at the Romans themselves. He was going at his people. That's why it even makes it more dope. And they still was like, who's this guy? It says, publicly claiming this title was an act of sedition all by itself. When you go into the word sedition, which scriptures do say that in 2nd Ezra, it said a conduct or speech inciting people to rebel against authority of a state or monarchy. This is what the scribes and the Pharisees were afraid. They're like, oh, he's stirring them up. Talking about this kingdom of heaven and all these things, healing on the Sabbath, doing all these, that was causing sedition. If the crowd had been prepped ahead of time for his arrival, if they were all aware of the symbolism, then this was a conscious political act, not misinterpretation or sheer confidence. There would most certain be consequences when tens of thousands of pilgrims in the city for the holiday. Any kind of demonstration could cause civil unrest and possible a major riot in the city. Both the Jewish and Roman authorities would now be watching Yahushua's movement. Did he lie Did he lie low after his grand entrance? No. He did anything but. He went to the temple, overthrew the money changers, tables, sending coins flying, people running. He made statements about the destruction of the temple. And an act on the temple, be it verbal or physical, could not be ignored. He he knew he now had the attention of the temple police and nearby Roman garrisons. Why did it not seize? Why did it not seize him immediately? Is unclear, because it wasn't his time. That's why it wasn't the Lord's time. He said it. Perhaps it was the spirit. It was spirited away by sympathizers, because people was tired. So he man. That's what this whole when the white man walking around healing people and talking the soft talk, it made no fucking sense, because everything she's saying, that's a revolutionary character. Well, not a character, but this was the Lord. And he did not raise up an army to go against the government. All right? Yahawashi went underground. He had to arrange for a place that he and his followers could have their Passover meal, but it had to be done at a safe house. Rather than tell all disciples the place, he made special arrangements by himself and then told only 2 of his followers. The rest did not know until the very day, on a need to know base. He gave two men very roundabout direction how to find the place. They were told to find a man carrying a pitcher of water, a rather unusual sight, since carrying water was usually a woman's job. They were instructed to they were instructed to follow this man, and when he turned into the house, they were to ask him where the master's room was reserved. Then they were to tell the rest only later in the evening of the location of the meal. Yahawashi had to avoid arrest before the holding his last supper. The meal was for men only, proving that what? The Lord is only dealing with men. Did not want his mother or other female followers to be put in harm's way. As we all know, there was a double agent in the room. Judas left the meal to betray Yahawashi to the Romans. Perhaps he was working for them all along. What he had betrayed the Romans was to rout Yahawashi's he sold Yahawashi to the high priest's soldiers. All right, there wasn't the actual Romans. He was sent to the Romans later. So that right there, that was kind of misinformation, because the most damning thing of it all, they the ones that arrested the Lord. It says, what he betrayed the Romans was to rout Yahawashi would take to leave the city after the meal through Garden Gethsemane, and since Yahawashi was from Galilee and had not well known in Jerusalem, the Romans would need someone to identify him by sight. The Roman authorities, Judas, accomplished this by his kissing Yahawashi to mark him as the one, which just makes sense too. It makes a lot of sense. The authority put Yahawashi under arrest, but not without some violence. At least some of Yahawashi's followers were armed, Peter, but in the end, They fled, and Yahawashi was led off to the elder judges known as the Sanhedrin, which we all know the rest. So this is this thing is good though. It says Yahushua's spectacle acts of obvious provocation certainly spelled trouble for the Jewish authorities. The Sanhedrin were responsible for handing over any troublemakers to the Roman authorities. As collaboration with the Romans, they were in the precursor position. They did not like to betray Jews to occupiers, but on the other hand, if they did nothing and left the Romans to take action, the army might strike back against the entire population of the city. There was no religious charge against Yahawashi. Claiming to be the Messiah was not heresy. Had there been a charge of heresy, the Sanhedrin could have had Yahawashi stoned, but the body had no jurisdiction in the criminal case. Only the Romans, as military occupiers, and the authority to execute. So whether or not there was an actual trial before the Sanhedrin, the Jewish leaders immediately turned Yahawashi over to the Roman authorities to avoid trouble, because they knew that would have stirred up, because he did so much good. The charge of the Sanhedrin was short, pretty much followed the standard form of Roman providence trials. It was held in the morning. The prisoners were softened up with a beating, and he appeared before the governor, Pontius Pilate, and was found guilty. He was sentenced to death, the same punishment given to all insurgents. He was crucified with a sign on top of the cross saying, Jesus of Nazareth, Yahawashi of Nazareth, the King of the Jews, was a warning to anyone else within similar aspiration. The message, which is St. John 19:19, the message would have been clear to any passerby, recognizing the Roman emperor as the only king, or die trying to replace him with someone else. So, like I said, we go to rest, which we know they wanted to stop. What is the high priest basically saying that he said he was going to come in the third day. They don't want to take his body and so forth. So this was a major thing in history. So they're looking at it as a point of view. Let me go down to this one. The Roman intelligence had done its job correctly. They had detected a public figure stirred up the people. They had watched him create public disruptions and preaching things contrary to the Roman interests. The same thing that we're doing. Through the Spirit. We're following what our Lord done. All right? And he was runner up and eliminated. So some of us is going to get eliminated. It tells you that. They did not wait to see how things were played out if they left him on the streets. Scholars continue to argue on the precise nature and the meaning of the triumphal entry and the cleansing of the temple, the disciples' swords, and the rest of Yahawashi, Barbara's episode, and the trial, and the trial and all trials, the non-central in every liking, to be reached based on the available evidence, but the attitude of Yahawashi to the temple, as well as his saying concerning social injustice would have had to bring him sooner or later into conflict with the authorities whose task was to maintain order, and to whom every national movement appeared suspiciously. Witnesses may have included an individual willing to sell information to the Romans in poverty-stricken provinces like Judea. It would not have been hard to find what local source called a mouth willing to talk, a pigeon, a stool pigeon, a snitch. Reports for various agents may have been confessed or contradicting as happening with all such reports. Agents may have exhausted their accounts, make themselves seem more important. It's proven there are going to be a lot of agents, a lot of spies amongst us as well. This is all part of the ministry, man. So whether some of the intelligence have been useful, some not. Whether or not Yahawashi actually claimed to be the king, intelligence may have reported only that people were saying he did. What matters is this case is not literally truth, but rather how this situation appeared to the Roman administration based on intelligence it had at the hand of the time. So this is their point of view. All right. This is their point of view. Now, this is like I said, this is a good read. I didn't even read all this. What it says, for the point of the views of Romans' immediate security needs, Pilate had Yahawashi crucified for justifiable reason. He was security risk. Pilate was acting in Rome's self-interest in the context of the first century occupation of Palestine. This might nipping any revolution action in the bud. Like many decision makers, Pilate made a judgment on the base of intelligence he had, even if the intelligence was fraudulentary, whether the threat of Rome's security was real or imagined is in the same ways irrelevant. There may have been an ongoing intelligence operation gathering information on a planned revolution by barbers running running concurrent with Yahawashi's action. Yahawashi simply got caught in the net. The governor of Judea made a political and a military decision for protection of his province. Like many modern decision makers, Pilate has since became the victim of Monday morning quarterbacking who second-guessed his judgment. He was not in invulnerable position, became known as an administrator who had crucified a man who became the mythologicalism center of the New World religion. So to the point of view, so I skipped it, but they'll say that he may have counter intelligence. So other groups, that's how the movie The Book of Clarence was all about. Amongst all the chaos, there was other people that wanted to overthrow the current government. So there was a lot of, the scenery was crazy back then. It says neither Pilate, nor any other Roman administrator, even with the best intelligence, could have known that their decision would have such a worldwide repersecution, repersecution, no, let me look this up. Sorry. Repercussion, sorry. Unintended consequences occurring for some time after an event or action, especially unwelcome one. So they started a whole thing, starting with the Roman Empire. So this was a good point to look at things. And there's other things that popped in mind. We're going ending off on this. It says Revelations 12:5 again, and she brought forth a man child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. Her child was caught up unto the Most High, to his throne. So the Lord's purpose was set. This is how we got the intelligence right now. This is how we got what we got in order to keep the legacy of our Lord going. All right. So with that being said, shalom to the elected nations of Shalom.